Hi there, I'm Mr. Dickey. I'm a former fifth grade teacher, and one of my favorite parts of teaching was reading really wonderful books to fifth graders. I decided that I wanted to continue this during retirement, so here I am. One of my favorite books was a Chinese folk tale written by Grace Lin. It's called Where the Mountain Meets the Moon. It's filled with wonderful images and memorable characters. It has daring and mystery and beautiful Chinese folklore and connections that always keep you guessing and thinking what's going to happen next. And so let me get started with Where the Mountain Meets the Moon and introduce you to some really cool characters. Far away from here, following the Jade River, there was once a black mountain that cut into the sky like a jagged piece of rough metal. The villagers called it Fruitless Mountain because nothing grew on it, and birds and animals did not rest there. Crowded in the corner of where Fruitless Mountain and the Jade River met was a village that was a shade of faded brown. This was because the land around the village was hard and poor. To coax rice out of the stubborn land, the field had to be flooded with water. The villagers had to tramp in the mud, bending and stooping and planting day after day. Working in the mud so much made it spread everywhere, and the hot sun dried it onto their clothing and hair and homes, and over time everything in the village had become the same dull color of dried mud. One of the houses in this village was so small that its wood boards, held together by the roof, made one think of a bunch of matches tied with a piece of twine. Inside, there was barely enough room for 3 people to sit around the table, which was lucky because there were only 3 people living in it. One of them was a young girl called Min Li. Min Li was not brown and dull like the rest of the village. She had glossy black hair with pink cheeks, shining eyes, always eager for adventure, and a fast smile that flashed from her face. When people saw her lively and impulsive spirit, they thought her name, which meant quick thinking, suited her well, too well. Her mother sighed, as Min Li had a habit of quick acting as well. Ma sighed a great deal, an impatient noise usually accompanied with a frown at their rough clothes, run-down house, and the meager food. Min Li could not remember a time when Ma did not sigh. It often made Min Li wish that she had been called a name that meant gold or fortune instead, because Min Li and her parents, like the village and the land around them, were very, very poor. They were barely able to harvest enough rice to feed themselves, and the only money in the house was 2 old copper coins that sat in the blue rice bowl with a white rabbit painted on it. The coins and the bowl belonged to Min Li. They had been given to her when she was a baby, and she had had them as long as she could remember. What kept Min Li from becoming dull and brown like the rest of the village were the stories that her father told her every evening at dinner. She glowed with such wonder and excitement that even Ma would smile, though she would shake her head at the same time. Ba, that's the name for her father, seemed to drop his gray and work weariness. His black eyes sparkled like raindrops in the sun when he began a story. Ba, tell me the story about Fruitless Mountain again, Min Li would say as her mother spooned their plain rice into the bowls. Tell me again why nothing grows on it. Ah, Min Li's father said. You've heard this one so many times, you know. Oh, but tell me, Ba, Min Li begged, please. Okay, he said. And as he set down his chopsticks, his eyes twinkled in a way that Minli loved. And so here is the story of Fruitless Mountain. And they do this separately. By the way, you can see these wonderful pictures, illustrations that Grace Lynn made. And you can see that they always title it the next story, the story of Fruitless Mountain. Once when there was no rivers on the earth, the jade dragon was in charge of clouds. She decided when and where the clouds would rain upon the land and when they would stop. She was very proud of her power and of the reverence of the people of earth paid her. Jade Dragon had 4 dragon children, Pearl, Yellow, Long, and Black. They were large and strong and good and kind. They helped Jade Dragon with her work, and whenever they flew in the sky, she was overwhelmed with love and pride. However, one day, as Jade Dragon ended the rain and moved the clouds away from the land, she overheard some villagers' conversation. "Ah, thank goodness the rain is gone," one man said. "Yes," another one said, "I am tired of that rain. I'm glad the clouds are gone and the sun is finally shining." Those words filled Jade Dragon with anger. Tired of rain? Glad the clouds are gone? Ha! Jade Dragon was indignant. How dare the villagers dishonor her that way? Jade Dragon was so offended that she decided that she would never let it rain again. The people can enjoy the sun forever, Jade Dragon thought resentfully. Of course, that meant despair for the people on earth. As the sun beat overhead and the rain never came, drought and famine spread over the land. Animals and trees withered and died, and the people begged for rain, but Jade Dragon ignored them. But their suffering did not go unnoticed by Jade Dragon's children. They were horrified at the anguish and the misery on earth. One by one, they went to their mother and pleaded forgiveness for the humans. But even their words did not soften their mother's cold heart. "We will never make it rain for the people again," Jade Dragon announced. Pearl, Yellow, Long, and Black met in secret. "We must do something to help the people," Black said. "If they do not get water soon, they will all die." "Yes," Yellow said, "but what can we do? We cannot make it rain. We cannot dishonor Mother with disobedience." Long looked down at the earth. "I will sacrifice myself for the people of earth," he said. "I will lie on the land and transform myself into water for them to drink." The others looked at him in astonishment, but one by one they nodded. "I will do the same," Yellow said. "As will we," Pearl and Black announced. So Jade Dragon's children went down to earth and turned themselves into water, saving the people on the earth. They became the 4 great rivers of the land, stopping the drought and the death of all those on earth. If you happen to have a map of China close at hand, you can look and find 4 major rivers in China, and you've just heard the names of those. But when Jade Dragon saw what her children had done, she cursed herself for her pride. No longer would her dragon children fly in the air with her or call her mother. Her heart broke in grief and sadness. She fell from the sky and turned herself into the Jade River in hopes that she could somehow be reunited with her children. Fruitless Mountain is the broken heart of Jade Dragon. Nothing grows on her or lives on the mountain. The land around it is hard and the water of the river is dark because Jade Dragon's spirit is so sad and it's still there. Until Jade Dragon is no longer lonely and is reunited with at least one of her children, Fruitless Mountain will remain bare. It's important to remember these stories that Pa tells. This one was the Fruitless Mountain, and we have to remember about Jade Dragon and her children. Okay, back to our story. Why doesn't someone bring water of the 4 great rivers to the mountain? Minli asked, even though She had asked that question many times before. Every time Ba told the story, she couldn't help thinking how wonderful it would be to have the mountain blooming with fruit and flowers, bringing richness to their needy village. Wouldn't that make Jade Dragon happy? When Jade Dragon's children turned themselves into water, Minli's father said, they were at peace and their spirits were released. Their spirits are no longer in the water, so Jade Dragon cannot find them in the rivers. Over 100 years ago, a man tried to reunite them by taking stones from the mountain to the rivers. That man was not taking the stone for a dragon spirit, Minli's mother cut in. She never quite approved of Ba's stories, as she felt they made Minli impractical and caused her to daydream. My grandmother told me he was an artist. He took the mountain rock to carve into inking stones. Did he ever come back? Minli asked. No, it probably did not make good ink, Ma sighed. He probably found something finer elsewhere. I bet the bronze on his horse's saddle was worth more than all we ever will have. Ma's sighs made Minli wish that every rock on Fruitless Mountain were gold, and she couldn't help asking, so how will Fruitless Mountain ever grow green again? Ah, her father said, that is a question that you'll have to ask the old man of the moon. Oh, tell that story next, Minli begged. Whenever I ask something important, people say, that is a question you'll have to ask the old man of the moon. Someday I will ask him. The old man of the moon, another story. Our house is here, our house is bare, and our rice hardly fills our bowls, but we have plenty of stories, Ma sighed again. What a poor fortune we have. Maybe, Ba said to Minli, glancing at Ma, I should tell you that story tomorrow. We're on to chapter number 2. Every morning before the sun rose, Minli, her mother, and her father began work in the fields. It was planting season, which was especially grueling. The mud stuck to their feet like glue, and each seedling had to be painstakingly planted by hand. When the hot sun burned overhead, Minli's knees shook from weariness. She hated the feeling of thick, soggy mud on her hands and face, and many times she wanted to stop with irritation and exhaustion. But seeing her parents patiently working, backs bent, made her swallow her complaints and continue. As soon as the sun began to set, Minli's parents sent her home to make dinner and to rest while they continued to work in the thick mud. They would not come home until the sun had completely disappeared from the sky. At home, Minli washed her face and hands and feet, and even though all the water in the basin had turned brown, she still felt like she was covered in mud. Her arms and legs were so tired that she felt like an old crab crawling on the rock. As she looked at herself reflected in the dark water, she saw Ma's frown on her face. Ma is right, Minli thought. What a poor fortune we have. Every day, Ba and Ma work, and we still have nothing. I wish I could change our fortune. At that very moment, Minli heard a faint murmuring sound that she had never heard before, and like a song chanted from the clouds. Curious, she opened the front door to see what the noise was. And there, on the road in front of her, she saw a small stranger calling out quietly, "Goldfish," he was saying softly, as if he were coaxing his fish to swim. "Bring fortune to your home." And Minli and the villagers stared at him as he wheeled his cart. Even though the village was by a river, it had been many years since anyone had seen a glimpse of a goldfish. The fish in Jade River were brown and gray, like the village. The goldfish man's cart was full of bowls of flashing fish that glittered like jewels. His gentle calling drew Minli to him like a moth to a lit lantern. How does a goldfish bring fortune to your home? Minli asked, and the goldfish man looked at her. The sun setting behind him made him glow bright red and yellow. Don't you know? He asked her. Goldfish means plenty of gold. Having a bowl of goldfish means your house will be full of gold and jade. As Minli stared at his bowls with their shining black eyes, a brilliant orange fish stared back at her with its shining black eyes. And then quickly, so quickly that Minli barely thought about it, she turned into the house and grabbed the 2 copper coins from the White Rabbit rice bowl. I'll buy that one, Minli said, and she pointed to the fiery orange fish with the black eyes and the fin that had caught her eye. The other children in the village looked at her enviously while the watching adults shook their heads. Minli, one neighbor said, don't believe this impossible talk. A goldfish won't bring fortune, save your money. But Minli was not discouraged, and she held out her copper coins to the goldfish man. He looked at her and smiled, and then he took 1 coin, picked up the fish bowl, and gave it to her. May it bring you great fortune, he said, and with a small bow to the villagers, he wheeled out of the village. In moments he disappeared from view into the shadow of Fruitless Mountain, and if it wasn't for the goldfish Minli had in her hands, all would have thought that he was just a dream. Let's take a look at the picture of Minli buying the goldfish, and you see the goldfish bowls. And that's where we'll stop for this reading.